We're here. We're back. We're ready for action. I'm excited to be here. It's Thursday, and Thursday's a good day. Every day's a good day. Not for everybody, and there's some tragic stuff that's been happening around the world, and I've been really going down the rabbit hole on a lot of that stuff. But it's a good day for traffic, services, and Ask a Traffic Cop. This is that show on the internet where we answer your traffic and police questions every single day. We're doing it today just like any other day. We're doing so many different things. You know, you can be watching us on Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Kick, and Twitter. But if you're on Twitter, we can't actually hear your questions. So you go over to trafficcop.ca and you can change platforms and join us on the others where we can actually see you. Let's see. We have Alexander who commented on this morning's Vision Zero enforcement team tweet. Not expecting to be talked about on the show, but just to answer, they said, why not start going after the bikes on sidewalks, e-bikes on sidewalks, motorbikes on sidewalks, and scooters on sidewalks? Let's talk about that in just a second. So if you don't know who I am, my name is Sean Shapiro. I'm a police officer with the Toronto Police Service, and I do this social media thing a lot. I was a motor squad officer who was injured in the line of duty. I found myself off the road doing stuff and things and not feeling very cop-like. But I had an opportunity to get involved with social media and media relations, and this has been amazing. And we've been doing this for a while. In fact, yesterday was the anniversary of my collision, and I didn't even remember. It's been a while. It wasn't until a friend of mine called to see how I was doing, to check in and see what was up. And of course, he felt really bad because I hadn't been thinking about it. Now that's all I've been thinking about in decisions. Do I ride again? I haven't ridden since. What do I do? What does life look like? And what I am doing, and what I feel really good about, is being here with you guys, answering your traffic and police questions every single day. I get to give back. I get to be a cop again, and I'm very happy about that. Good morning to Chris Deru and Tim, who've jumped in on Twitch and YouTube. Good morning to, let me switch windows so I can actually see who to say. Tracy and Charbel and Sempre and Jojo, all the people that are jumping in on the live on TikTok. If you're watching, regardless of what platform you're on, know that this is for you. Literally a show for you. If you don't ask me questions, I got nothing to talk about. So please ask the questions that mean something to you, because we're here to give you those answers. Big Jeff Fresh, good morning to you. If we are, there's a couple things I do want to talk about. I want to talk about, again, the driver that was charged yesterday for doing 223 kilometers an hour on the 427. CP24 did. I'll pull up the article in a sec. But interesting things. I was chatting with the officer who actually charged that driver this morning, and it was an amazing. It was an amazing bit of, I guess, observation that he made. And I want to share that with you. So we'll talk about that in a few minutes. Before we get into too much else, I want to remind you that to ask a question, you need only make a comment into the chat, and that will show up just like Big Jeff Fresh's good morning message. Then we can talk about it. Now, if you're on TikTok, it's a little different. Drop it in the chat. Please add the letter Q in front of it so we know it's a question. And then our producer, JD, will take that question and pop it over so I can actually put it on screen. That's the goal. We want to put you on screen. Now, what else do I want to let you know? Trafficcop.ca has links to all of our social media platforms, as well as some really useful information. We'll talk about some of that. We're also going to talk about employment, because we are hiring. We'll also talk about, we're going to talk about, this is important, Special Olympics Ontario and the HarleyRaffle.ca motorcycle, because that's coming up. August 2nd is the draw. But before we do anything else, I'm going to talk about Vision Zero, because that is important stuff. We talk about it every day. Because Vision Zero is an enforcement group. It's a subunit of the Toronto Police Service, of traffic services specifically, which is where I work. And they go out and issue tickets every single day. They are changing driver behavior, one ticket at a time. No hugs are issued. And they focus on, those things that are known to cause injury and death. We look for speeding, aggressive driving, distracted driving, and impaired driving. And those are driving behaviors that people choose to engage. Nobody makes you do anything. Nobody forces you to drive like, I was going to use something I shouldn't say, but, speeding, if you're choosing to speed, you're choosing to increase your crash risk. You're choosing to increase the damage and injury on a collision. It's just the facts. When you're talking about aggressive driving, not only are you not making friends, but you're increasing your odds of getting hurt. And I'm assuming that most people have people that they care about and that care about them. Why would you put yourself at risk? Why would you possibly risk hurting somebody else? That, in this very small world that we live in where everyone's connected, you might even know in some way. You could be involved in a collision and you may know the person or be connected within 6 degrees of that person. It's just, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. I talk about it all the time, but it's not worth it. Okay, where are the Vision Zero officers focused today? 12 Division and 55 Division. If you don't know where those places are, well, it's Weston, Mount Dennis, Rockcliffe, Smythe, the beach. The beach or the beaches, that's a whole different conversation. I grew up calling it the beaches. Apparently it's the beach now, but I still call it the beaches. So Riverdale, Danforth, East York, neighborhoods within the divisional boundaries that I mentioned, where real people live, work, and play. And we mention it every day on our social media platforms because we want to let everyone who lives there know we're focusing on your area. Not so you can change your driving temporarily to avoid a ticket, but because we care, because we want you to know that help is there. And that we understand that communities are being negatively impacted by people who choose to be unsafe. It's sad. Kids want to play, people want to work. Not only is there danger and risk, but some people are driving and creating noise. Is noise dangerous? We can talk about that too. Certainly impacts people's lives, and it cascades into other things. We've got some questions coming in from Instagram. So everybody other than Instagram comes through on one screen, and then I have to look at the actual phone for Instagram. Let's see here. Oh, interesting. Radix wants to know if there's a default speed limit for bike lanes if the speed limit is not posted. Bicycles don't actually have, we can't enforce speed limits on bicycles. Careless driving, we can charge cyclists for that. But it's the same speed limit as the speed on the road. So it's going to depend what the posted limit is or if there is an unposted limit for the jurisdiction you're in. Let's see here. Can someone still become a police officer after being charged with stunt? It's a good question. I think that you're going to have to do a lot of explaining and probably have to wait a long time. A stunt driving charge suggests you don't respect the law. You don't accidentally do 50 or 40 kilometers over the posted limit. You actively choose to drive in a way that is lawless or unlawful. So I think you'd have a very difficult time if you were convicted for that or even being charged for that in your background check. At very least, be very open and honest about it, and I would call a recruiter and see what they have to say. But yeah, that's an interesting one. So with that, what do I want to do now? I want to go back to that question. Did I close the window? Of course. It was talking about why don't we enforce cycling, boarding, e-bikes, e-kick scooters, all those things in the city of Toronto. We do. And in fact, I was just creating some poster stuff for the station talking about all the different charges for them so that we can always keep it top of mind for officers who are walking by. But the reason why you may be seeing a lot of people getting away with a lot of things is because we can only be where we are when we're there. And when you are there, we may not be there. So it may appear that we're not doing anything, but we are. We're charging people. And we focus on the big stuff. We do go and lay charges whenever we observe something that is unlawful. But because I'm there as a police officer, I may not be able to act. I may have a prisoner on board. I might be tasked with a call to go investigate some violence crime somewhere. And the person who's doing something like riding on a bicycle on the sidewalk, although it's unlawful, may get a free pass that day because we cannot just say, hang on, person who was just assaulted, we've got to deal with this cyclist. So there are priorities, and we have to pick and choose sometimes. Let's start with here, there. Okay, I'll wait for till 20 after to talk. We'll do 12 minutes of questions, and then I'll talk about this article from yesterday. Trying to keep a schedule, trying to develop a schedule. This is all very, easy breezy, flowy, no set schedule. But then I want to try and create a schedule because I want to be able to make sure I get everything all the time. Don't want to go down rabbit holes. Let's see here. Here's a question. How would we know that the police vehicle wants us to pull over? Lights and siren is a very good indicator. Sometimes it's a, hey, you, pull over. I'll drive up beside, or an officer will drive up and look at you as the driver, give you a toot on the horn or the siren, and direct you to pull over. Regardless of how we communicate, pull over. If you're directed with a one-to-one message, it's pretty simple. If you're directed, if lights and sirens is what you're hearing, you must pull over. You're required to pull over under the Highway Traffic Act. And whether or not we are going to pass you and continue because we're going to an emergency call, or we're going to stay behind you, you need to pull over and stop. So that's how you know. If that wasn't enough, and if you have further questions because that doesn't cover the question that you really wanted to know, then please let me know, and we'll go again. I see a greetings and salutations pop up from my good friend Akila Draconis, which even though I was going to wait a little, no, I'm going to wait. I'll come back to motorcycles later. We have a raffle. There's a raffle in support of the Special Olympics Ontario, harleyraffle.ca, and I usually pull up the screen, but we're sticking to a quasi sort of schedule. Sort of. Okay. Charbel has a question. Let's pull it up. I am a tourist and I have an international driver's license. Is there anything that I should do? If you're a tourist, you're visiting and not residing here, and you have a foreign license, a license that's issued from your home country, and an international driving permit, or in some cases, you don't need an international permit, but there is a distinction. There is a difference between a foreign license and a driver's permit issued, or an international driver's license, which is really just a translation card. On its own, it has absolutely no value. It is not a driver's license. And we have people who drive, we pull them over and they give us an international driver's license. And they are charged with driving without a license because that's not a license. It's a translation card. So you really need to know what you have there. If you are unsure of what you have, talk to the Service Ontario, drivetest.ca, ministry. Actually, go to trafficcop.ca, and at the bottom I have a link to Driving in Ontario if you're a newcomer or a visitor to the province or the country. There's a lot of information there. And in most cases, foreign licenses are accepted for up to 6 months as a visitor. And once you hit 6 months, if you don't have an international driver permit, you would no longer be able to drive. If you are a resident, you're not just a tourist, but you've now relocated here, you have 3 months to apply for an Ontario license. So hope that helps. If you've got more questions, we'll readdress. Going back to my list, here we go. Oh. So a lot of stuff popping in, good stuff. Okay. What do we have here? We have Tim, who has a question. I have a Garmin GPS. Do the same rules apply of a cell phone for a GPS unit? No, they don't, actually. I'm impressed. Actually, I saw a vehicle yesterday. Maybe it was you. I saw a vehicle with a GPS in the window, and I was shocked. Those things still exist. It's old tech now. Is there any reason to buy a GPS versus just putting your phone on display or having a wire connecting it if you have the technology to do that? In any case, that is not a handheld communication device. It's not capable of sending and receiving information in most cases. It wouldn't meet their criteria. In any case, the screen can be visible. You can actually touch a GPS unit that is not a telephone or not a computer. But I wouldn't suggest it because it could constitute careless driving if you're trying to punch in an address on an antiquated GPS unit. That could be a cause for concern because you could be all over the road. So even if it doesn't apply as a cell phone, I would use the same caution and not touch it. That said, cell phone that is mounted and in GPS unit, you can see the screen in GPS mode. And yeah, you can use your GPS, but I again, wouldn't. And moving on. It's going in circles. What is this? Trev wants to know, is low speed lane filtering with a motorcycle illegally explicitly, or is it a gray area? It's not explicitly illegal, nor is lane splitting or lane filtering isn't listed in the Highway Traffic Act as a prohibited or permissible act. But driving between moving traffic in between other vehicles constitutes careless driving, constitutes in some cases stunt or even criminal dangerous driving. It all depends. It's not gray. It's just determined. It needs to be determined as to what the officer who's making the observations thinks is the most appropriate charge. Used to be failed to drive in marked lane would be appropriate, but if you're filtering or driving past moving traffic, it is clearly going to be one of those charges. Just which one is up for debate. Now, when you talk about filtering, that is when all traffic is stopped and you're moving through stopped traffic to get to the front of the pack or into the pack so you're not the back. Do I have less of an issue with that than people driving through moving traffic? Absolutely. Is it still not legal? It's still illegal. You could still get charged for it. If you were simply moving a car length in so that if there was a vehicle approaching at high speed, didn't stop and struck the bookend or the last vehicle, you don't want to be that person. You move up a little bit and stop. I would have no issue with that. Another officer might. It's not something what it is something you'd have to argue in court in the event that you were charged. So I hope that helps. I would, in Canada, simply not do it. And the argument of, but I think it's safer, or I have concerns for safety, or my bike overheats, they're really not good. People do it all the time, and more, they're getting charged. So many questions coming in that they moved. Calm Down has a question. And by the way, if you're new to the channel and you haven't followed us, you haven't subscribed, please do. And if you can share and retweet and whatever buttons are available to you, please use them so you can help others find our content. But Calm Down wants to know, are people allowed, in order to protect themselves, to remove tinted license plates from parked cars? No. It's illegal for people to drive with tinted license plate covers. But how would you, what does that have to do with protection? I'm not entirely sure of the motivation. It's illegal for them to operate the motor vehicle with a tinted cover. You are not allowed to touch or vandalize other people's property. So maybe you can flesh out the question and let me know how you're protecting yourself. But no, you can't touch other people's stuff. In fact, we don't generally touch other people's stuff unless we're seizing their plates. And even then, there's very specific reasons when we can do that. What is the rule for stand-up e-scooters? If you go to trafficcop.ca, I've got a link outlining the pilot project's rules. But in short, an e-kick scooter must be incapable of going above 24 kilometers an hour on a flat surface. It must have no more than a 500-watt powered motor. It cannot have a seat. What else can it have? There's a bunch of different rules, and they're all there. The big thing to understand is you also can only operate them in jurisdictions that allow them. Toronto is not one of those. So it's a $90 fine, $115 with the victim fine surcharge, if you are operating an e-kick scooter in the city of Toronto. They're prohibited here. If you're using them in a bike lane, they're prohibited there. If you're using them on a sidewalk, hey, they're prohibited there. And that's anywhere because that the pilot isn't operating them. On a sidewalk, it's never allowed. But it's a big deal to understand what you've got. Now, if your e-kick scooter exceeds a 500-watt motor, it's a dual motor, it has the ability to go faster. There are ones that out of the box do 50 miles an hour. Those are motor vehicles. They are no longer covered as an e-kick scooter. In fact, if you put a seat on any of them, it's a motorcycle, and you can be charged for driving without insurance, driving without a motorcycle license, or license depending on the configuration of the device. It's a bad day at the office. Don't get caught with these things, and that doesn't mean do it and just avoid getting caught. I mean, don't do it. It's not worth it. We see people getting severely injured on these, and when the insurance companies are doing investigations to determine who was in the right and who was in the wrong, do you think the person who's breaking the law just being there is in the right? Do you think that gives some ammunition to the driver who hit you, even if they were in some way responsible for the collision, but you were not even allowed to be there because you're breaking rules? How's that going to work on your payout for insurance when you're severely injured and you're hoping to be reimbursed for losing work, and they determine that you caused or share responsibility because you were breaking the law just being there? Things that you probably didn't think about while trying to be green and getting to work in a reasonable way. I appreciate that. I own an e-kick scooter, and I cannot use it because it's not legal. But it wasn't outlined that way because it was prior to legislation, at least when I bought it. Anyway, it's great for private property and closed events, and that's where I was using it. And now I don't even know if it'll take a charge anymore. That's a thing. Hey, you know what I'm going to do right now? I'm going to cover that business that I was going to chat about at 20 after, because it's almost 20 after. It's close enough that if I start talking about something else, I'm going to miss it. Okay. Special Olympics Ontario. Hey, what if I do this? Hey, you can see me. Special Olympics Ontario, if you'd like to support them, and I think you should, I think everybody should, you can, that's not the right way. Okay, we'll go back to full screen. It's not doing what I want it to do. 1 ticket for 20, 3 tickets for 50, 8 tickets for 100. Only 40 days to go. Actually, it's almost 41 days. If you buy your tickets before July 5th, you are looking at an opportunity to be included for an early bird prize of a $500 gift card with Harley Davidson. And who wouldn't want an extra $500 to buy Chromie Bits? If you're going to win a motorcycle, and who doesn't want to win a motorcycle? This thing is not cheap. I would like it for free. I think it's a good go. What do you think? HarleyRaffle.ca or go to trafficcop.ca. Either one, one is the actual website, and the other one is a website that has a link. And what is trafficcop.ca? I'm glad you asked. Trafficcop.ca is my link tree. And hey, this one I set up so we can have it side by side. If you go there, right there, hey, look at that. You can click there. It'll open the window, along with all of our social media, my social media, my contact information, places I've been contributed. I've got to add some more. I say it every time, but I say it so I remind myself. Useful links, and this is really what it's all about. This is what I was talking about earlier. So if you want to make a report online, there are police reports that can be done here. Pedestrians and cyclists can start collision reports here before they actually get to a collision reporting center. Save some time. Renew your license plate, really important if you want to avoid the $110 ticket for not renewing it, and it's free for most motor vehicles, so why wouldn't you do it? Driver's license check. Make sure the people you're loaning a vehicle to are properly licensed, because if it's invalid, well, you're responsible as the person letting an unlicensed driver drive your vehicle. Here's the e-bike and e-kick scooter business. If you're buying a car, make sure it's not stolen. If you're new or visiting in Canada, here's the rules about driving in the jurisdiction. And this. Oh, you can't see it. Let me jog it up a little bit. Compliment a member of the Toronto Police Service. I am not looking for compliments, but I do think it's an amazing thing that they've created here, which is a form that allows you to basically write the chief a letter and say you had a good experience. Now, the chap who got stopped for doing 220 kilometers an hour, 223 kilometers an hour, may not be lining up to compliment the officer who charged him. But you know what? That officer did a great job. Truly, they are making the road safer. Is this a good time to talk about that? I think we'll just extend this little break and continue talking about this, because I think it's an interesting one. So here we go. This is a Volkswagen, and many people were saying they had no idea that a Volkswagen could even do this speed. So they said over 200 kilometers an hour. Yeah, 427, and they were doing 223. And that is just, hey, there's my tweet. 223 kilometers an hour. Nobody has any business going that fast. So people say, well, that's stunt driving. Okay, that's easy peasy, lemon squeezy, right? They get a ticket, they lose their vehicle for 30 days, and then they get their vehicle back in 14 days. Maybe they get suspended for another 3 years. What are the consequences? Well, in addition to the stunt driving, they were charged criminally for dangerous driving. That takes it to a whole new level, doesn't it? And I think a lot of people think it's just a traffic issue. No, you're putting people's lives at risk, and expect to see more people charged this way, charged criminally. 223, over double the speed limit. Insane. Okay. Crystal says, I witnessed a lady putting a 5-year-old in her car, but in the front seat. Could I report that? But if I report it, will anything be done? So a 5-year-old in the front seat, if in a child safety restraint properly, then that's legal. If they're putting that child without a booster or child safety restraint, that is against the law. You could certainly call because that child is at risk in the event of a collision. That could be fatal, and that's the reason why we have laws surrounding it. So yeah, you could report it. And would something be done? At very least, an educational discussion would take place between police and the registered owner, right? Okay, let's scroll back and continue with your questions. My name is Sean Shapiro. I'm a police officer with the Toronto Police Service. I talk about traffic safety, traffic law, and police stuff every single day. If this is your first time, please follow, like, and subscribe, regardless of the platform. If you're on TikTok, please double tap that screen or quadruple tap or just tap until your fingers go numb. It really helps the algorithm know that what we're doing here is worthy of your time. And we have people who spend a lot of time with us. And I thank those people who come because we have folks like Tracy and Emma who are here every day. And they know lots of stuff and things because for years, like since we started doing this, Emma, for instance, who was the first person to ever guest on my show on screen, well, she knows all this stuff because she's here every day through osmosis. And, constantly being, well, it's osmosis, but hearing the same tint question every single day, it just becomes part of you. Okay, what do we got here? We have Radix with a question of, can I practice my archery skills in public parks? I don't know what the rules, if there's bylaws surrounding that. That wasn't the question I was expecting. But I used to, where I used to live, there was an Olympic archer who used to practice in the public park. I have no idea the rules surrounding that. So unfortunately, I cannot provide you with any good advice. Other than probably not a good idea. I'd probably want to go to a proper range. But I was in high school when he was doing it. I wasn't prepared to tell him that you shouldn't do that. I had no idea. I thought it was cool though. Really neat to see. Archery is an interesting sport. Probably not for public parks though. Okay, looking for a new question. Can your car be impounded for not having active insurance card, but the car has insurance? No. We do not impound vehicles for you not providing your insurance card upon demand. You can be charged $65. That's the cost of the fine, the ticket that would be issued. But it's not something we would impound. Even if you don't have insurance on the vehicle, if we're charging you for drive motor vehicle no insurance or owner-operator or owner permit, we don't impound the vehicle. You're not allowed to drive it. You have to get it towed, but we don't impound. We impound for other stuff. So if there was an interlock situation or a stunt driving situation or impaired driving, those are things that trigger impound. Okay. Are police officers allowed to speed without having lights or sirens on? A very popular question, although not recently. And the answer is yes. Police, fire, ambulance are permitted to exceed the posted speed limit, and lights and sirens aren't required for police. I don't know if their policy requires it under fire or ambulance, but definitely not for police. Police are allowed to exceed the speed limit as long as it's for a lawful reason during the lawful execution of their duties. That could be for me to speed up so I can catch a speeder. And if someone's speeding, I can pace them. I can get up to their speed to identify the driver before I activate my lights. There are so many different reasons. Responding to calls. If I want to go to a call, let's say a burglary in progress, an alarm is going off silently at a house, I'm not going to go lights and sirens to the front door. I'm going to go silently. And most importantly, it's dangerous to have lights and sirens on. And people think that is not, or at least they don't think that's the answer that I'm about to give. But that's the answer I give. And why is it unsafe? People do the darndest things when you put lights and sirens on. A, they think that they're being pulled over. So they sometimes just stop in front of you. So not only could it be dangerous because someone, brakes unexpectedly, but it will slow things down. People get nervous. They do things. We'd rather to pass you, and sadly, exceeding the speed limit, lights or no lights, we're probably going the same speed as the average person breaking the law. You're not allowed to go above the speed limit, but we are. I know people get upset with that, but it is what it is. Okay, I need water. Kenny has a question. Is it okay for a uniformed police officer in a civilian vehicle to text while driving or at a stop? If it's a police vehicle, even if it's unmarked, so it's hard to tell you whether or not it is a police vehicle but there are police officers in uniform. It is likely a police vehicle. We have a lot of unmarked vehicles. We have stealth vehicles. It is something that police are permitted to do. There's an exemption for police to use their handheld communication devices. Sometimes we don't have enough fleet vehicles. We don't have enough vehicles in our fleet to take care of major events. Sometimes they rent vehicles. Those are police vehicles while we're using them. So there's a number of reasons why they would, but they are legally permitted to use their devices, not to order pizza, not to to go on to Plenty of Fish, but to go and communicate for the lawful purpose and actual police business. Some vehicles, especially those rental vehicles, don't have police computers and sometimes don't have police radios, but those phones are police-issued phones and can communicate with our dispatchers and in some cases act as radios. There's a ton of stuff they can do, and it is lawful. Ostinator Reed, how are you doing? And as soon as I read your name, everything slid off the screen, so I'm scrolling back, and there you go. And all you said was, that's a good question. I don't know which question you're talking about, so I'll keep going higher. Maybe you had another one. No, you had another one. Let's see. It's almost the last day for kids. Let's make it safe for them to stop for the school bus. Thank you for bringing up school coming to an end. It is the second day of summer, or is this the full days of first full day of summer? Was that yesterday or today? In any case, summer break is approaching, and yes, there will be a different schedule on the road. Parents who are not racing to get their kids to school, school buses not racing to get to school. We'll see differences in the way traffic flows and congestion, and it'll just be different. But it also means that there'll be more people out on the street, either playing or going and doing things. You got to be expecting the unexpected, because that's what happens when things change. Routines are different. So yeah, school buses, pay attention. Camp buses are now in play. Do camp buses have school bus authority? If they are marked school buses and they are activating their lights, then they are. Now, depends on the time of day might be different. If they're dropping people off in certain areas, I don't know. I don't know. If it's not, if school is out, can you still use a school bus? School bus drivers, let me know. I'm pretty sure you can. In any case, be on the lookout for changes, and yes, safety is key. If there's an accident between a vehicle and a motorbike, oh, interesting. If there's a collision, we don't say accident, between a vehicle and a motorcycle, who's splitting lanes? Who's at fault? Well, we would charge likely both. Well, it depends. The motorcycle who is doing something absolutely illegal and unsafe, that's acknowledged as such, is definitely getting charged. If the driver is doing something that's unsafe and causes the collision, they would be charged. If the car is doing something lawful and legal, and it's the motorcycle that caused the collision, all we do is write down what happened. Actual fault will be determined in court and by insurance companies, but believe you me, the motorcycle who's primarily traveling through slow or stop traffic caused a collision by being there, because they shouldn't be doing that. Oh, what a great idea. Joe O'Leary wanted to know if Honger's bike could be placed at 40 College Museum permanently. I would love that. I don't think that's going to happen, but I think that is a great idea. I think maybe when it's retired, instead of selling or decommissioning it, that it go there. I think that would be lovely. I will certainly share the sentiment with the Motor Squad, and I'm sure we've already discussed it, or it's being discussed by people who make decisions, not people like me, but other people who have more rank, like any rank. But I will definitely pass that along. I think it's a fabulous idea. All right, scrolling, because a whole bunch of stuff just rolled into my screen. Now, if you are watching and don't know who I am, my name is Sean Shapiro. I'm a police officer with the Toronto Police Service, and I talk about traffic safety a lot, like every day. Even when I'm not at work, I talk about it. In fact, I think about it. I often say that traffic safety is a shared responsibility, which infuriates certain people. And I don't know why. Because everyone should be thinking about traffic safety all the time. If you walk, you drive, you ride, it doesn't matter. If you do things without safety in mind, you may find yourself in a horrible situation, like getting hurt. And that doesn't mean you're at fault. It just means it would be nice if you thought about it. Not because it would necessarily change things, but it could. It could. And could is like buying a raffle ticket. If you buy a raffle ticket, you increase your odds of winning. If you think about traffic safety, if you're focused on what everyone else is doing, if you're taking responsibility for yourself, it might change the outcome of your day. And if you stare at your phone and cross the street whilst engaged in whatever video game or text message you're reading, you might find yourself getting struck. Now, that doesn't mean it's your fault, but could it have been prevented if you were doing something differently? Maybe, and that's what I'm talking about. I'm not victim blaming. I'm just saying we all have a part to play. Doesn't matter what your role is. And if you could change the outcome, or if you could have changed Coulda, woulda, shoulda. Can't change, can't undo. So if you can increase your odds of safety, I say do it. It's my suggestion. Okay. Where is, oh, there we go. All right. I'm flagging that. That's the flag question now, so I can find where I left off. Do the speed limit adjust automatically for speed camera after school hours, or is the same, or it's the same for 24 hours? Always the same, unless the sign says different. And that makes sense because people in the community believe that the speed limit is the speed limit, whether school is out. It's not a conditional speed limit. The speed limit is the speed limit. And rightfully so, you should be held responsible for maintaining and following the speed limit. So there you go. Here's an interesting question. And when it decides to load up, it's not loading up. There we go. There we go. If a person gets a DUI on a bicycle, does their bicycle get impounded? Can they ride a bicycle? Calvin, a bicycle does not qualify for impaired operation offenses. Under the Criminal Code of Canada, it is anything other than muscular in order to be charged. So if you're on an electric skateboard, you're on a mobility scooter, on an e-bike, an e-kick scooter, a motorcycle, a car, a truck, whatever, a motor vehicle according to the HTA, not the HTA, but a motor vehicle according to the Criminal Code of Canada, then you can be charged. And at that point, anything with a VIN number would be impounded. What would happen to a bicycle or an e-bike that doesn't have a VIN? Well, it would be taken into, it would be going into the Property Bureau, because to tow it and impound it through that channel, it would have to have a VIN. But it's an interesting question. And should we charge people on bicycles? Certainly unsafe to ride a bicycle impaired, but they would be charged for something different. It wouldn't be impaired operation of a motor vehicle. Let's see here. Dustin wants to know if gang units, try that again. Dustin wants to know if gang units are allowed to make traffic stops. Police officers have the authority to make traffic stops, all police officers. If someone who happened to be assigned to a traffic unit or saw a gang and wanted to do a criminal stop, they would be in no different a place than if a marked or unmarked unit who is a police officer wanted to stop someone and they were in the gang unit. I'm not aware of an undercover officer wouldn't want to blow their cover by saying, hey, I'm stopping you for a red light offense, because that would be silly. They wouldn't do it, but allowed to. You're a police officer, you have the authority. If you've got lights and sirens, you can do it. Actually, even without lights and sirens, I've stopped people while, standing at the side of the road and pulled them over. You don't need lights and sirens to do a traffic stop. What do we have here? Kathy. Okay. Follow up, and I can tell you, come on, it's not where to go. So I get like 25 questions that just stack up all at once. It's fantastic. Makes it hard to find. Here we go. Kathy, here we go. Any more information regarding push-to-talk handheld radios? I have not been able to find anything that exempts school bus drivers in particular. I've done some reading. I am hoping to see one more person for some definitive answer, but stick with me, Kathy. We're going to go. And again, you can email me so I can directly email you back. If you want to email traffic safety programs at torontopolice.on.ca. Do I have a caption for that? I can put it on screen. Maybe. Well, it's close. I thought I had an email address here. Hey, there we go. But my computer doesn't want to listen. Come on. There we go. Traffic safety programs at torontopolice.on.ca. If you email me there, I can send it back to you when I find it. In addition to, of course, bringing it up on the show. Hopefully this afternoon I'll know more. Is a cadet the same as a police officer? Or is cadet just a probationary police officer? Neither. A cadet is not a police officer. They are a police cadet. They have not been sworn and do not have police authority above and beyond anything that a civilian has. Like an auxiliary officer has the arrest authority of a citizen's arrest. A police cadet, if I'm not mistaken, is the same. But used to be that I think you had to be 25 years old to carry a firearm years and years ago. And if you were hired before you were 25, you were a cadet. Now, things are a little different. You can become a cadet in some police forces. We don't actually have active cadet where we hire them and they do stuff around the city in Toronto, but some services do. They give you like a year to feel out the job, I guess, where you do some things around the station. Now, when you get hired as a police officer in Toronto, you are a cadet in training. That is just the title. You're a police cadet because you're going to the college. But that is very specific to our process. You don't actually go and interact with the public. You don't work as with the public. You're just at school. Once you graduate and are sworn in as a police officer. The best people to converse with about all of this, guess who they are? It is true. They are the careers, the recruiting unit. And it's a great segue into discussing careers with the Toronto Police Service. I got to change the zoominess of this. Hang on. Make it bigger. Making it bigger. Where's my mouse? Here we go. Hey, there we are. If you are interested in becoming a police officer, special constable, parking enforcement officer, communications operator, or one of many different roles being filled right now, check out www.tps.ca and you can get all the information you ever wanted to know. Now, there's details about police officers, but we hear about them all the time. What you don't hear about are civilians. Senior writer, that's a new one. I think it just posted today. It posted on the 20th. I don't think I noticed that. That's in corporate communications. Issues and media advisor. Lead social media. Auxiliary volunteer is the best way to contribute to your community in a volunteer capacity. I did that for 12 years. I loved it. I did it while also working as a court officer. Fantastic way to not only get an idea of what a police service is about, to see the world through different eyes, because you'll never look at the world the same after you've walked around in a uniform, and become the information person for everyone on the street. Go to the Santa Claus parade in a uniform. You'll find out just how quickly people determine that you are the source of all info. Developer digital team, benefit administrator, senior analyst, solutions architect, and communications operator, all positions that are currently posted. And guess what? They all have expiry dates in that, look at auxiliary volunteer. You have to apply by June 25th. That's the cutoff. So what are you waiting for? If you're interested in becoming a member of the service, you can contribute, you can be part of something big, and you can do it by volunteering or becoming a paid member of the service. Either way, www.tps.ca/careers. Okay, enough of that. Let's move back to closing this window and that window. All right. Good morning to Richard. I just saw your hello. And, Ellie Friedman, how are you? I left a message. We'll have to catch up. But we have a good encounter yesterday with a Toronto traffic cop. Very professional and friendly. Kudos. Hey, if you go over to trafficcop.ca, I've got a link. If you really want to give them kudos, you can throw a message in there to the chief. Just saying. What do we got here? And I see the bike in your profile. Are you riding? Are you back on the road? My bike is parked. It is not going anywhere. I think I might sell my motorcycle. It's not doing anything. Just having this conversation. I don't know if I had for the longest time thought that I'd be any day now getting back on a bike, and at this point, I think I might not, which is sad, and also a different discussion. Maybe it's the smart thing to do. Okay, I can't decide. For me, it's injured and family needs me. Yeah, I don't want to go through another. This is being the fact that it's the day after the anniversary of my big crash. So, Michael says greetings. Okay, here's a question. What is this? Ride share. Could ride share drivers be charged for distraction if they get a request to access the ride and navigate while driving? If they don't accept, they will miss over 70% of requests. You're not allowed to use your handheld communication device. Taxi drivers and delivery truck drivers do have an exemption. I don't think it applies to rideshare drivers because it's a phone, whereas they have permanent units installed or at least units installed that are not telephones in taxi cabs, and they're allowed to have certain stuff because we were reading about handheld communication devices very recently. But there's nothing that says rideshare. The HDA doesn't include you. I would say that you are eligible for a ticket at this point if you are engaged in your phone, reading something when you're driving and then pressing a button to accept it. If you were to blindly accept it, I think it would be very similar to that of answering a telephone call, and it would be less of an issue. Still possibly illegal, but unlikely that it would be an issue if the vehicle or the phone was mounted in the vehicle. But if you are reading, you are not driving. And if you are doing that, you are putting people at risk, and you are definitely eligible for a charge. So there's no exemption. Until there's an exemption, I can't give you the clearance to do anything. You should be parked waiting for a call as opposed to just aimlessly driving around. Georgie, are e-bikes allowed on city streets? E-bikes that are legal, that conform to the legislation, that are not capable of going over 32 kilometers an hour on a flat surface, that have appropriate and brakes that are not over 50 kilos. I think that's for a different thing. There's a weight, and I've already forgotten what it is. But if it's an e-bike, cannot have more than a 500-watt motor, must have functional pedals installed. The ones that are capable of moving the vehicle on its own. So if it conforms, and you can go to trafficcop.ca and have a look at what the rules are. That's listed on a link down at the bottom for useful information. Go check it out, because the rules are all there. If it complies, yes, you can have them on city streets. If it is non-compliant, if it goes 33 kilometers an hour, if it's got more than a 500-watt motor, I see bikes on the road that are doing 50, 60, 70, 100 kilometers an hour. They are motorcycles, and they're being sold as e-bikes, but they're not. And you are responsible if you buy one of those. And many of the places, because I've called to ask questions, and they say, yeah, no problem, I'll show you where the cable is, just yank it out and you'll be doing 100. No, not legal. If it's capable of doing it, not legal. A lot of problems with that. Now, the details of the rules, if you look at the City of Toronto, every jurisdiction has different rules. Bicycle lanes. Can an e-bike that's a pedelec go anywhere? Yeah. Pedelec means you must be pedaling, no throttle. One that looks like a motorcycle, can it go in bike lanes? No, it can't. There's a lot of different rules. Know the ones for your jurisdiction in addition to those of the province. What happens if you drive with a G1 alone and get caught? This was once my favorite charge to both lay and to talk about. So here's the deal. If you drive a G1 alone, you're driving effectively without a license. You're driving unaccompanied, and your license has a condition that you must be accompanied. So simply for violating a condition of your license, you're looking at a 30-day suspension on conviction for your first conviction. So 30-day suspension the first time, you get caught doing it again, 90-day suspension, third time, you get kicked out of the driver's program, the graduate licensing program. Now, the person who let you drive the car without being supervised, they're responsible. So mom, dad, cousin, friend, whatever, gave you their car, they're getting charged under the Highway Traffic Act. They don't want to get charged under the Highway Traffic Act, no problem. They say that you took it without permission, then you get charged criminally for taking a vehicle without consent. Yay. Now, guess what? We usually find people after they've hit something. They're an inexperienced driver, they get involved in a collision, they were G1 driver alone. Your insurance company does not cover you when you are unlicensed, and for the purposes of this, you are unlicensed. So, Karan, if you were thinking about it, think again. It is a horrible idea. Horrible. All right. Moving and grooving. Here's a question from Ryan Pinn. Now, Ryan Pinn is a driving instructor from Nova Scotia and a friend to the show. And he always has interesting questions that are usually comical. Aloha. Aloha to you. Am I able to delete my mud flaps if my catalytic converter is wrapped in razor wire? Sounds reasonable. Your mud flaps are only required if your vehicle is, well, actually, it depends on the heights and the width of the. Mud flaps are good. You should have mud flaps. They don't make you go faster or slower for that matter. I don't think there's sufficient drag created by mud flaps, but they are important. They flap for mud. They prevent mud and debris from, causing issues. Big tires, I don't like. But catalytic converters, they're kind of important. All right. Where am I? There I am. No, I'm right here. Okay. Hula Lula. We talked about that. We talked about this. Oh, things just move. All right. I wish I could delete questions that I've covered already or mark them better. Developers, if you're watching this, please fix that based on my requests. All right. Squirrel, which is what I just did. Should a photo of the driver and plate number that ran a stop sign on a country road be reported? You want to report the photo? If you're saying you have a photo of a driver who ran a stop sign, depending on the jurisdiction, depending on the service, there is an opportunity for you to report a specific driver. Like in Toronto, if you saw that happening, whether you had a photo or not, you can make a report and say that a green SUV with plate number 12345 was, at this date and time at this location was seen running a stop sign, and I think that's bad. You can do that, and we'll make a report because it's a legitimate report, and you have to attach your name and all your information. It has to be real. And at that point, we can write a letter to the registered owner. We won't have enough to lay a charge necessarily. It's unlikely that we'd be able to lay a charge. We need a bunch of things. Like if you had video of it and you could identify the driver, it's a different situation. We may actually be able to lay a charge. But generally speaking, it's a letter to the registered owner. And if it's a young person driving somebody else's car and the registered owner gets that email or letter in the mail saying your vehicle was seen at 3 a.m. on Tuesday, and maybe they didn't have permission to have it could negatively impact their life. Like maybe the person won't get the vehicle again. Just saying. All reports are good reports. Daniel wants to know if you're traveling the speed limit and traffic, slower, is it legal to weave through traffic? What? Weaving through traffic could be dangerous. If you're traveling the speed limit and other traffic is slower, stay to the left and pass safely, which means you can't just maintain your speed and weave through traffic. That could be unsafe. So the answer really depends. But weaving suggests unsafe maneuvering, and that's bad. The truth is most people are traveling well above the speed limit. And the average question is, if I travel the speed limit, can I get a ticket for unnecessary slow driving? So I'm shocked that you actually want to travel the speed limit and weave through traffic. Weaving, again, bad. Sounds bad. But if you are safely traveling the speed limit faster than other vehicles, be careful of your speed differential. That's where we have big problems. If you're doing 5 kilometers an hour faster than the other vehicles, that's one thing. If you're doing 50 kilometers faster, that's a problem. You say speed limit, but that could be everybody else is at a dead stop and you're trying to well, here's a good scenario. HOV lanes. People like to use them to get through stop traffic. And they're great, except people in stop traffic who didn't plan on being in the HOV lanes tend to cross over those lines that say don't cross, and they jump into the way. Well, if you're traveling at the speed limit and someone pulls in front of you, you're likely going to hit them. So it's great to go faster than stop traffic, but if you're doing the speed limit and everybody else is stopped, that could be a 100-kilometer speed differential. That would be a horrific collision. Go slower. And people go, I never thought of that. Now you thought of it. That differential is going to cause a problem. Yeah. Why can't motorcycles split lanes? Many countries and states allow this, especially air-cooled bikes. It's unsafe, and the reasons for it being legal in other places aren't really relevant. I say that because there are arguments for and against it. They almost balance out. For the people who say we don't want to get our bikes overheating, that really isn't something that's relevant. If you're going to ride on a hot day, you got to know that it's hot, and maybe buying a American-made and not an air-cooled machine is not the best choice. But I ride Harleys for the police, or at least I used to. They got hot, we survive. It may be uncomfortable, but it's not a reason to be unsafe. Generally speaking, the reason for moving through traffic is cited as being safer than having a vehicle run into you in a stop. Now, I personally don't have an issue with lane filtering, where if you had absolutely stopped traffic and you had a 10-kilometer speed differential, I personally, not legally, but personally, believe that could be safe. The problem is we don't see that here. We see people doing 30, 40, 50-kilometer an hour speed differentials through moving and stop traffic, and that's unsafe. So if you were to do it, you could be charged with careless driving at the least. You can be charged with criminal dangerous if it was really egregious, or stunt driving, which is where you have that marked departure between vehicles. The biggest problem is in moving traffic, but it can't be done anywhere. If you're at a stoplight situation, if you were waddling your bike between cars, I really don't have a problem with it. If you're riding between cars, think about this. Anything that happens while you're going between vehicles is your fault. You're taking it on. If you look at California Highway Patrol's website on lane filtering, they will tell you it's dangerous and extreme caution must be used. And that's a place where it's legal. So a lot of people advocate for it, but it's not a safe practice. All right. And it's also not a safe practice because car drivers often stink. A lot of people think they're great drivers. They're really not. So many questions, and I can't stay past 11 today. Okay, I got to start speaking faster. Are personal radar detectors legal, and can police detect them? They're illegal in Ontario. You cannot possess, sell, trade, transport, nothing. It's a $170 fine, 3 demerit points, and police have search and seizure authority. We can stop your car. We can tear it apart looking for it. Don't have them. The only time they can be transported in Canada is from the manufacturer to the consignee, and that is in a sealed container, straight up. So it's very serious here, and that includes laser jammers and laser anything that prevents police from accurately reading or enforcing speed limits, reading your speed or enforcing speed limits. And really, anyone who has one is just trying to get away with driving unsafely, driving against the law, and wants to avoid detection. So what really happens when they have a radar detector? They quickly slow down, and they then speed up again and become unsafe as soon as they pass the beacon that tells them that they should slow down. Are city bus drivers allowed to use their computers while driving? There is an exemption for city bus operators, and that is there. We should do a whole thing all about the distracted driving laws. Maybe we'll do that. All right. I'm scanning quickly. There's 4 minutes left. The pressure's on. Can you please explain a single arrow means on a no parking sign? Aaron, what's a single arrow on a no parking sign? It's pointing to the direction where you're not allowed to park. Exactly. And there should be another sign with another arrow that's bookending it on the other side.
Sometimes the arrows get covered up, like by stickers by the city if they're doing construction.
Oh, so apparently sometimes they cover up one of the arrows when they're doing construction. Oh, or if they're changing bylaws. I'm parroting what's being told me. Be wary of. Be careful. Okay. Trizzy wants to know, what if you're riding a 600cc motorcycle as a minor with no license or insurance and get caught? What happens is you get charged for driving with no license. You get charged for driving with no insurance. Actually, if you own the vehicle, you get charged for no insurance. If it's somebody else's vehicle, they get charged for driving with no insurance. But it's a $5,000 to $25,000 fine and up to 6 months in jail for even letting you drive it with no insurance. If it's yours, that's your problem. You get charged for that. But the minor doesn't get you out of anything. It just means you get charged. Depending on how young, if you're under 12, your parents will get charged. Don't do it. It's really stupid. Boom. The Grinch, what's going on? Is it true that hanging a CD or DVD from your rearview mirror will deflect laser radar, or is this a myth? It's an absolute myth. First of all, we're not aiming at your front windshield when we are using a laser device. We're looking at reflective surfaces that are going to send the signal back to us, not something that's going to deflect it. We wouldn't aim there. But that's funny. Dad joke. We're going to dad jokes here. Akela, bye-bye, we'll see you later. Dad joke is, when does a joke become a dad joke? When it becomes apparent. I like that. I like it a lot. Last time you didn't have a joke, so I appreciate you coming back. Oh, wait. There's more. I bought some shoes from a drug dealer. I don't know what he laced them with, but I was tripping all day. That's really good. Let's see here. What do flies say when it's summer? Swarm, isn't it? All right. Let's see here. Where do we submit dad jokes? You right where you just did. It was a comment. Just drop them in there. Chris Wilkinson says, I enjoy your live stream. I think I pressed the button. It hasn't updated yet. Where is it? Come on. But thank you. It's really delayed. Enjoy your live stream. I really appreciate the feedback. If you are back tomorrow, join us at 10 o'clock when we celebrate Friday. Yes, tomorrow is Friday, and we celebrate Friday on Friday. And if you are around later, like around 12:30, I'm joining Kelly Cottrell on AM 640. We'll be talking about stuff and things. So join me then. And if you can't join me later today, come back for Friday and see. Chase wants to know, are we back tomorrow? You see, I had 2 weeks where I actually was off on Friday. So it's a legit question, Chase. I appreciate it. What is this? What does 50 Cent do when he's hungry? He's 58. Did you hear that one? No, he's not on the phone. What does 50 Cent do when he's hungry? 50. I like that. Kelly is so funny. What is this one? Be well, Sean. Be well. Yes, be well to you, Grinch. This is going back to, it's flipping back to yesterday's Demolition Man reference. Have a good day, everybody. And here's the traffic song to see us out. See you again, 10 a.m. tomorrow. It'll be awesome.
Yellow light, red light, green light, go. Driving safely helps the traffic flow. Watch for pedestrians, look out for bikes, and don't drive like a jerk that no one likes. Yellow light, red light, green light, go. Driving safely is the way to go. Put down your cell phone, nobody needs you to text and drive on the DVP. Yellow light, red light, green light, go. Stop at stop signs, look both ways, then go. Seatbelt, save your life indeed. And watch your driving, don't speed. Yellow light, red light, green light, go. Driving safely is the way to go. Don't drink and drive or smoke some weed, because you might go to jail and not get free. Yellow light, red light, green light, go. Driving safely helps the traffic flow.
Another awesome episode in the bag. And Thin White Line Interceptor wants to know what the most surprising positive moment that you experienced while on patrol is. We'll have to talk about that tomorrow because I've run out of time. Have a good one, everybody. Stay safe, drive sober, and park legally.